He's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
Okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the unmelanated gall of Jillian Michaels. Let's get into the reason why she should stick into teaching people how to lose weight instead of teaching American history. Y'all like, comment, and subscribe.
He's gone into the Smithsonian. He's effectively now has some random person deciding what is appropriate for the Smithsonian to teach in terms of American history, things that don't offend parts of the MAGA base, right? So we're now literally reviewing parts of American history and parts of American culture to make sure it comports with Dear Leader and what the MAGA
Can we
organization
address
wants.
some of those things that are in there? Because have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Slavery was a bad thing it was to talk about.
Okay.
Like,
He's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
Okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is...
Yes, the fuck you can, especially in America. When we talking about America, let's not lose context to that. We talking about America and not the world.
pretty much what every single exhibit does. Well, let's talk about the fact that when you look at
Anti-slavery.
let's talk about the fact
Slavery in America was.
do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans own slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
It's not about who owns slaves. That too. And there's more context to that 2%. We're going to get into that later. But it's about the system. It's about the ability to create wealth. For 400 years now. Some people was able to create wealth for 400 years. We started being able to create wealth, barely over 100 years now? And if that, they used to tear it down. So don't give me that just 2% people own slaves. That's why we should forget about it.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people
Do you know who was the first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised.
Do you realize that?
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history,
Okay.
in the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by
What I'm
saying that
you
it was white
cannot-
people oppressing black
Every
people?
single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba.
Y'all whitewash everything and try to culture vulture everything, but y'all will not take ownership of this. Why not, man? And I hope y'all know that this mindset will die off. So you can keep trying to push this narrative, but the truth will always prevail.
Because white people bad. Not because of past. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you walk in the front door, the first thing you see is a gay flag?
Jillian, you have a lot of stuff in front of you.
Yeah, I do,
What
because
exactly
because here's the
are
thing.
you talking about?
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
There's one called Change Your Game, right? This has been an installation there. Is gender testing fair in sports? Does that, and then it goes on to talk about how it's complex to do gender testing in sports. It's not complex, it's basic science. That's untrue. It's XX chromosome, XY chromosome. That's sports. Is it fair?
It's 3 + 3 is 6, 2 + 2 is 4. No shit. Can you get into the reason why you have a problem with people teaching the history of America?
Fair to have biological men competing against biological women in sports? No, but why is this in the Smithsonian? So it's been completely captured.
First of all, I don't.
And it's totally partisan.
First of all, we don't have time to litigate
Of
all of this.
course we don't, because then you're going to lose the argument. And if everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Excuse me.
It's like, oh, I can't believe you're trying to suggest, that
just
slavery
to be
is a good
clear,
thing.
you brought up race.
No,
this was a conversation about the arts.
She trying to make herself a victim. They try to call us victimized mindsets. This is a victimized mindset. I'm the victim. Don't make me the victim of racism when I'm actually trying to be partially racist. Don't call me out on my bullshit.
And you brought up race.
It isn't,
You
though.
brought up.
But the whole
hold
point
on,
of
hold
this
on,
is that
Jillian.
the issue
You
people
brought
take-
up. You brought up slavery, and you brought up
I
the
actually
question
didn't.
of whether.
You
hold on.
did.
You brought up
And
the
my
question
point-
of whether or not slavery in the United States is about race. The answer is
No, I
yes.
didn't. I
Slavery
did not say
in the
that.
United
Don't,
States
no, don't
is
straw man
about
my argument
race.
because that's not what I said.
So what are
she
you
brought
talking
up
about?
slavery, and what I was talking about is that this isn't really about that. When you make every single exhibit about white imperialism when it isn't relevant at all, that is a problem.
How is it a problem when white imperialism is literally how they built America? Are you okay? Are you okay, Jillian?
So when you're talking about Cubans leaving Cuba and you make it about white people bad, that's not accurate.
Can I just
Okay.
say, zooming
That's
out,
my point.
All right,
on
we're
the-
going to move on
I
from
was saying
that.
on
Yeah.
It's gone into this.
That's it for that video. Let's get into that 2% number she gave. Let's put some context to that.
So anyone surfing social media this week has surely seen this clip of Jillian Michaels saying this about slavery.
Do you know that
White
only
supremacy.
less than 2% of white Americans own slaves?
And while she didn't name a specific year in her claim on CNN, she did tweet this out later saying, "I'm denigrating all of humanity by pointing out that 98% of American white people in 1860 didn't perpetrate slavery." But let's take a look at this claim. Because yes, as the data shows, in 1860, there were 393,975 slave owners in the United States out of a total population of 31,183,582, or just 1.26% of the population. But let's take a closer look at that. Because by taking a look at this map,
And even with them fucked up numbers, like I say again, it's about the ability to create wealth. Stop just denigrating that just the ownership of slaves. People who didn't own slaves were able to create wealth for their families.
from 1860, of the percent of households that owned slaves at the time, we can see that slavery was no longer practiced in the North and was only practiced down here in the South. And so yeah, if we eliminate those 18 free states and only concentrate on the remaining 15 slave states, you can see we get that same amount of slave owners that now have a population of just 12 million. That's almost 19 million off of the original number, which gets us to 3.22% of the population owning slaves. And so
So with a little bit more context, it go from 2 to 3%, and that's gonna be their argument. Let's do some more breaking down of it.
yeah, if we eliminate those 18 free states and only concentrate on the remaining 15 slave states, you can see we get that same amount of slave owners that now have a population of just 12 million. That's almost 19 million off of the original number, which gets us to 3.22% of the population owning slaves. But here's another problem. If we just look at the U.S. slave states in 1860, we can see that in the slave column here, we have almost 4 million slaves. And because they can't own themselves, we gotta minus them out.
So she was using the argument counting slaves. She was trying to say the entire population counting slaves. She was trying to make it seem like it was just white people.
Too. And so if we remove them, we get 8.2 million with the same amount of slave owners, and now that number jumps up to 4.75% of the free population of these 15 states. But if we focus on just those 11 states that decided to secede from the United States in order to protect slavery, that percentage gets even bigger. So if we add up just the Confederate States, we get 316,632 slave owners and 5,582,222 people, meaning that now 5.67% of the free population owns slaves. But again, this 5.67 number only deals with the patriarch of a family who actually owns those slaves, not the wife and children who stood to inherit them when he died. So if we take a look at that number, we can see that 30.8% of the free families in the Confederacy owned slaves.
Wow, so that number went from 2% to 30%, nearly 31, and 49, and nearly 50% in Mississippi. fuck just building wealth, they was outright owning us. And the other 70%, I'd say probably about the other 60%, they was acting a fucking fool. They was the overseers, the overwatchers.
And that number was as high as 49% in a state like Mississippi. And that's why, Jillian, it's important to teach slavery to our school children, to know how it started, how it progressed, and what states decided to fight a war to keep it. I mean,
And that mindset she has is eventually going to die off, because in this age of information, you can't deny the truth, baby. The truth always comes to light.
there is zero evidence to say if these 11 states had beaten the North in the Civil War that they would have ever ended slavery. It was an economic advantage that they didn't want to let go of. And that's why it's no secret that when you take a look at the map of people that owned slaves in 1860 and compare it to the map of the states that decided to fight a war over slavery, and then compare it to a map of the violence that was brought against black people in the 10 years after Jim Crow laws were adopted in the South, and then compare it to a map of the segregation that existed all the way into the 1950s and the 1960s, it's clear that the same culture that was committed to slave ownership decades after other American states.
And look at this piece of shit. Motherfucker holding his dog with a rifle next to him with our ancestors around him. Fuck this piece of shit. If I could, I'd spit on his face. Me personally.
Gave it up, maintained that culture in those same states more than a century later. This is a picture from 1965 of a woman and her daughters. And that's
Never. Let's go back to that picture. Never. And I'm assuming this is the end with the hard aura. Don't you wish you were white? Never. In 100 lifetimes, I'll come back black every time. I actually have a heart.
And that's why it's important to teach all history, Jillian, not just cherry pick certain percentages when they work for your argument. We need to teach kids everything and let them figure it out for themselves.
And that's if you want to argue in good faith. But if you want to push bullshit propaganda, you keep doing what you're doing. And that's it for you today, y'all. In conclusion, I want to say, fuck her mindset. It's going to eventually die off. Let the truth be the truth. It's always going to come out. Y'all like, comment, subscribe. Peace.